All right, let's jump straight into this explainer with a little test. I want you to play along with me right now because we're about to expose a massive collective glitch in human memory. Seriously, it's something you experience all the time, but you probably have absolutely no idea it's even happening.
Okay, here's the test. Does the Monopoly Man wear a monocle? And what color is the tip of Pikachu's tail? I literally want you to pause for a second, close your eyes, visualize those characters, and lock in your answers. Actually, drop your answers down in the comments right now before we move on. Go ahead, I'll wait. Got them? Are you absolutely 100% certain?
Because here's the thing, when you really try to picture these famous icons, your brain might actually be pulling a fast one on you and filling in details that simply aren't there. We are so incredibly used to seeing these figures in pop culture that we just naturally assume our memory works like a perfect, high-definition video recording. But, as we're about to see, that video is highly edited.
So brace yourselves, and I am so sorry if this shatters your childhood, but the Monopoly Man never had a monocle. Never! Pikachu's tail, it is solid yellow. There is no black tip on the end of it. Oh, and that beloved children's book series about the bears? It has literally always been spelled Berenstain with an A, never Berenstein with an E. If you got those wrong, don't freak out. You're just experiencing what's known as a collective false memory.
Now you might be thinking, come on, that's just a random internet trick or maybe just a few people having a brain fart. But researchers actually put this to the test to see if that was true. A recent study by the Transparent Replications Project rigorously tested nearly 400 participants, 393 to be exact, using 40 different popular logos and characters just to see how widespread this glitch really is.
And the results? They found that 8 out of those 40 logos consistently triggered these collective false memories. It's a phenomenon dubbed the Mandela Effect. You know, the term was actually coined back in 2009 by Fiona Broome. She discovered that she, along with huge groups of people on the internet, vividly and falsely remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, when in reality he was released, became president of South Africa, and passed away in 2013. So how on earth can millions of people remember a global event that never happened?
Well, the absolute crucial point here is that our memory isn't a hard drive, it's reconstructive. It relies heavily on what psychologists call schemas. Think of a schema as a mental shortcut or a template. When your brain tries to recall the Monopoly Man, it thinks, okay, wealthy, older man from a specific era, and the schema for that specific type of character almost always includes a monocle, right? So, just to save energy, your brain quickly guesses the missing detail and literally snaps a monocle onto him in your mind. You aren't remembering a true image, you're just reconstructing a stereotype.
But wait, it gets wilder. Once your brain makes that tiny guess, society totally steps in to back you up. How do these false memories spread like wildfire? Well, memory conformity and social reinforcement. When you hear someone else confidently say the Monopoly Man had a monocle, you subconsciously adapt your own recollection to match theirs. Throw in viral memes and internet echo chambers, and suddenly you've got this massive feedback loop where group consensus completely overrides the actual facts.
To really understand the deep hardware glitch causing all of this, we kind of have to bridge from pop culture right into clinical neuroscience. There's a term you need to know: confabulation. In a strict clinical sense, confabulation is the honest, confident production of an ill-grounded memory narrative. It's driven by a malfunction in how the brain retrieves info. And to be super clear, this is not lying. The person genuinely, wholeheartedly believes they are telling the truth, but the underlying memory process itself has just short-circuited.
For the longest time, traditional science treated these confabulations basically as blank hallucinations, assuming that a false memory had absolutely zero connection to reality whatsoever. But researchers like James Openshaw are completely challenging this with a theory called referential confabulation. He suggests that this isn't just a random hallucination out of nowhere. Instead, it's a process error. The brain actually does refer to a real memory, but it just completely scrambles the surrounding details.
To see exactly how this plays out in the real world, let's look at a fascinating clinical case. Patient CA was a 67-year-old woman suffering from severe memory impairments due to Korsakoff syndrome. When doctors asked her what she did yesterday, she confidently told them she went to church and cooked a wonderful Christmas lunch with her mother and brothers. The shocking part? One of those brothers had passed away 30 years ago, and her mother had been gone for 15 years.
Now, your first instinct might be to think she was just inventing some tragic fantasy, but researchers realized CA wasn't totally hallucinating. She was retrieving a genuine, completely real memory trace from her past. I mean, she really did cook that exact Christmas lunch decades ago. But her brain's retrieval system had completely scrambled its context and its timeline. The memory itself was completely real. The timestamp was just entirely broken.
So why does that timestamp break down so badly? It all comes down to a failure in what scientists call strategic retrieval. When we try to remember something, our brain runs a very specific background sequence. It forms a query, searches using cues, and finally, this is the big one, it monitors the output to see if it makes sense contextually. In referential confabulation, the brain successfully grabs that old episodic memory trace, but it totally fails step 3. The whole monitoring process just breaks down. Meaning, it never bothers to fact-check if a childhood Christmas memory actually belongs in yesterday's schedule.
Actually, back in 1995, researcher Morris Moscovich hit the nail on the head. He noted that confabulations often refer to actually experienced events that are just chronologically distorted. There's another wild case, patient SD. He was a runner who suffered head trauma from a terrible fall in the mountains. Later on, he falsely remembered winning a race the day before and being awarded, get this, a piece of meat that was placed right on his right knee. It sounds completely bizarre until you realize that during his mountain fall, he got an actual open wound on his right knee. His brain simply took his real history of racing and merged it with the actual cut on his knee to create this completely new, strangely specific false narrative.
So what is the big takeaway from all this clinical data and pop culture confusion? Well, it really highlights our reconstructive reality. Whether it's playfully misremembering the Monopoly man's monocle because of a cultural schema, or a clinical patient like CA misplacing a 30-year-old Christmas dinner, these glitches prove a really humbling point. Our memory systems are highly vulnerable reconstructive processes that are not perfect filing cabinets. We are literally constantly editing, guessing, and conforming to the world around us.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. If your brain is perfectly capable of seamlessly rewriting a beloved childhood bear or confidently displacing a decades-old family dinner to just yesterday, which of your own core memories is actually a glitch? The next time you are absolutely, unequivocally certain about a memory, you might want to stop and ask yourself, is this reality or is my brain just telling me a really good story? Seriously, sound off in the comments with the biggest false memory you've ever experienced. I'd love to read them. Thanks for diving into this explainer with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.